All right, class, this web video will walk you through writing the long essay question. Um, we had some trouble with certain areas of the essay, and we those concerns kind of crossed over into the DBQ um, outline. So I just wanted to go ahead and put this on record to let you guys know some of the things I keep on seeing and how we can fix that. There will be a separate video for the DBQ after the quarter ends. So the long essay question, you have 35 minutes to write it. And a couple things that is going to evaluate you on. Number one, a thesis. You have to develop a thesis that makes a historically defensible claim. This is a relevant argument and responds to all parts of the question. It's also going to evaluate you on argument development using the historical thinking skill that it's assessing you on. So for our Unit 2 essay question, the historical thinking skill was periodization. So you want to develop and support the thesis using the target historical thinking skill. And so periodization was the one that we had. Periodization is all about turning points. That's the key phrase there. We want to associate with that rather than, and that's a little bit different than continuity and change over time. Argument development using evidence. So you want to be able to support the thesis using specific examples of relevant evidence to fully and effectively substantiate the stated thesis. Responses must include a broad range of evidence that, through analysis and explanation, justifies your claim or your thesis statement. And then obviously, you always want to put everything in context, so contextualization is going to be key. You want to situate the thesis statement by explaining the broader historical events or developments relevant to the question. So what are some steps that might help you score a higher grade on the essay? Number one, analyze the question. You want to take time to consider what the question is really asking you to do. So the first thing you want to do is identify the subject of the essay prompt. It could be a specific historical identity, such as Puritanism, the Confederacy, the Constitution. It may be a historical concept, such as republicanism. It may be a process, such as industrialization or western expansion. You want to identify the date range, and we'll talk about that a little bit more to come. But be sure that your response addresses this era. All right, so if it's asking you to talk about things that happened before and after the ratification of the Constitution, make sure you're doing both. Identify the required tasks. Every essay requires that you use relevant evidence to develop an argument about the past. You must go beyond simply listing factual information. How you extend that information is identified in the main verbs of the prompt, such as compare, describe, explain, analyze, and so forth. Your answer must do what the prompt asks you to do. You may want to underline the main task required of you. You want to identify all parts of the question. Make sure that you have looked at and able to underline or circle all aspects of the question. All right, especially when they talk about, for instance, there's a question here: evaluate the relative importance of domestic and foreign affairs in shaping American politics in the 1790s. You must deal with both foreign and domestic affairs. So the historical thinking skill that we looked at the other day for this essay was periodization and turning points. That's what we wanted to look at, because there's really two types of periodization. Turning point style is when you're describing the ways in which the historical development specified in the prompt was different from and similar to developments that preceded and followed. You want to explain the extent to which the historical development specified in the prompt was different from and similar to developments that preceded and followed, providing specific examples to illustrate the analysis. And so when you're looking at these things, one thing I saw in our essays from Unit 2 was that we didn't look at and describe the ways in which the historical development ratification of the Constitution, how the Washington's administration was different from or similar to the time period before the ratification of the Constitution. And then we also didn't explain the extent to which the time before ratification was similar to or different than the years following. So making sure that we're doing that with a historical thinking skill. Typically, with periodization, phrases that are commonly used to identify periodization include the real turning point of ... was, is, can be considered the beginning or end of, the true beginning of the true beginning of ... is, all right, ... serves as the beginning and end of the period because. So just a couple phrases, they might be of some help. So when you're looking at this historical thinking skill, using phrases or being able to identify phrases will help you understand what the prompt is asking you to do and help you better set up your essay. So thesis statements, developing a thesis. So a strong thesis is an essential part of every AP US history essay answer. Often you guys are having difficulty taking a position. Maybe you're afraid of making a mistake, but remember, I'm not, nor are the AP readers looking for one right answer, but rather for you to show your ability to interpret the evidence and develop historical support for that interpretation. Thesis must be more than a restatement of the question. It requires taking a position on the question and a focus on the appropriate historical thinking skills. So once again, the historical thinking skill for your essay from Unit 2 was periodization. So you have to take a position and you have to focus on that turning point of 1789. Writing an introductory paragraph. This is key. You want to include a background statement. This is like, providing the reader with some historical context. So you should include a brief explanation or a broad general statement about the key theme, time frame, topic, or idea of the essay that provides the historical context for your writing. You want to have a thesis statement, of course. This is a thesis statement, not a thesis sentence. So it can be more than one sentence. A thesis is an argument. It is a point of your essay. It's a clear, precise topic sentence or topic statement that lets the reader know your answer to the essay's question and the historical thinking skill. You must include your thesis in the introductory paragraph. Don't be too broad, including ideas that the essay will not address, or too narrow. Limiting the eventual scope of your essay. You have to have a roadmap, and this is something where our thesis statement, the first part was okay. We had a claim. We had the point clearly stated out. While we were struggling with connecting it to the historical thinking skill, that's something we can improve on. The roadmap and the topic sentences that come after that, that was some real concern, and I didn't see it get better with the DBQs. The roadmap, this could be your second sentence of your thesis statement. This is a sentence or the sentences that provide a list of the main arguments used in your essay. These organizational categories provide a kind of roadmap to the reader and are used to prove the thesis and provide the structure of the essay. So how specific? Because a lot of times you're going to see on your essays, provide direction. I need direction. So how specific your roadmap should be is a balancing act. On one hand, you don't want to be too general, but on the other hand, you don't want to be too specific. You want to let the reader know where you're going, but you don't want to give away all your information. So if we went to the prompt, evaluate the extent to which the Articles of Confederation were effective in solving the problems that confronted the new nation. A good thesis statement that has some good categories of analysis. The Articles of Confederation created a well-organized system for dealing with newly acquired territories and providing a financial means to increase revenue. However, the Articles of Confederation was not effective in solving many of the problems faced by the newly formed United States. It established a loose confederation of states that lacked a sense of national unity. It created internal gridlock that failed to establish a system of checks and balances. and it created a government that did not have the powers to conduct basic governmental business. All right, so with those categories of analysis, just making sure that you're trying to find that balance between not being too specific and not being too general. So once again, with that Articles of Confederation, listen to these categories of analysis and kind of compare them to what you write in your essay and your thesis statements for your essay. It established a loose confederation of states that lacked a sense of national unity. It created, and this is just separated by commas, it created internal gridlock that failed to establish a system of checks and balances. And it created a government that did not have the powers to conduct basic governmental business. And so by the end of the first paragraph, your reader should not only know the thesis, but have a clear idea of the main arguments that will be developed in the body of the essay in support of the thesis. The introduction should include about 4 or 5 sentences. Now, when you're writing the supporting body paragraphs, they should contain accurate, specific, relevant evidence that is chronologically correct, that supports the thesis or the argument, and establishes a clear link between the evidence and the thesis. And so I like to just say follow the roadmap. You know, the number and order of the body paragraphs must follow the order stated in the organizational categories of the roadmap found in the introduction. Each body must have a topic sentence. This is something that we struggle on with both the DBQ and with our essay writing. In each paragraph, start with a topic sentence that connects directly to the argument in the thesis paragraph, the historical thinking skill, and the organizational category of the paragraph. So I think we do a decent job with the organizational category of the paragraph, but I don't think our topic sentences do a very good job connecting to the thesis statement and connecting to the historical thinking skill. So once again, making sure that you're going back and looking at that, because this was a real cause of concern for both the essays and the DBQs. You want to provide evidence to support your thesis. This is something that we struggled with as well. Be sure to cite specific examples of people, laws, literature, ideas, or other evidence that are applicable to your essay. Don't just tell a story with a list of unrelated laundry list of facts. You must analyze and interpret the evidence that you have gathered and explain how that information supports your thesis. A quick way to see whether or not you've provided analysis in your answer is see whether it includes the word because, or go to that analytical phrases bookmark that I gave you at the beginning of the year and see if you are using those phrases or those words. Generally, an A paper will contain at least 9 strong pieces of evidence, each of which usually takes at least 2 or 3 sentences to explain. Almost always, these require proper nouns with an explanation of what they are and how they relate to the question. The last thing I should tell you on your body paragraphs is focus on the historical thinking skill. This is something that we failed to do, and I believe that was probably our weakest point in our essays. Focus on the historical thinking skill. You must explain how the specific historical evidence is linked to the thesis and is linked to which, it's also linked to the historical thinking skills. So how does this evidence, all right, how does it relate to not only your thesis statement, all right, how does it and to what extent does it relate or connect to the historical thinking skill? We'll go with conclusion and synthesis a little bit later. Hopefully this has been some help and we can see some improvements in your essay writing in the future.